All right, we are live.
Okay. Time to, first of all, do
Tweet.
Twitter stuff. Twitter stuff might actually work better. Not quite sure what a tweeter is.
Tweet. And is there a way for me to view the chat?
Not within this main window, I think. You have to open up a separate YouTube window and have that open as well. For chat. At least that's what I've experimented with so far. I can't seem to find a way of doing it all.
All right. We'll see if this works. Okay. And if I miss things in the chat, I apologize in advance. Okay. Welcome everybody to our March Short Fiction Favorites live show. We're going to talk about a handful of the stories that we most enjoyed reading in March. We will discuss them. We'll probably also discuss things that we don't agree on or that we didn't like.
Yep.
I will let Joe introduce himself first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Joe, fellow booktuber. I'm really into my science fiction and fantasy, unsurprisingly. My channel is not booktube, well, book related particularly. It's actually Fun and Blow Joe, which sounds like book well. It's actually a real life nickname from years ago. And that's pretty much it, really, I think, introductions.
All right. My name is Rachael, and you know my channel because you're on it right now. It's Colonati, and I'm also a booktuber, and I read science fiction and fantasy and short fiction. So let's get into it. I probably should mention the history of our live show because this is a monthly live show that we do. That Joe came up with the idea and asked me to do it, and I said yes. So we will be doing this on the first Saturday of every month. So it's going to be a regular thing, and we switch between our channels. Yeah. So my channel this month is going to be Joe's channel in May. Yes, May.
Yeah. It's not always Saturdays, of course, as today's example.
That's true, because we moved it so we didn't conflict with the exciting interview with Mary Robinette Caldwell yesterday, which I watched, and it was delightful and very interesting.
Yeah, especially the puppets. That was unexpected.
Yes, she actually showed a puppet in it, and I was like, yay!
I was like, okay, that's odd.
She actually talked about short fiction in there and about how reprints are so important to making a living off of short fiction. And I think something about how the word length, like shorter stories, get reprinted more. I thought that was very interesting. I never thought about why you would want your stories reprinted so much, but yeah, you get paid for it.
Yeah, just each and every time.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of might tie into what we're talking about today, because I think that most of my favorites this month were reprints or older in some way. So we should just get into, sorry. SFFShorts hashtag. When we did this last month, somebody suggested to us that we let people know beforehand what we are reading, and so that you guys have a chance to read some of the stories and know what we're talking about when we actually did a live show. So we are using the SFFShorts hashtag on Twitter, where we will tweet out links to stories as we read them that we really enjoy, and other things related to the live show. And I guess we encourage anybody to use it. If you have suggestions for us, if you want to share your favorite short fiction as well, let us know, because it's not always as easy to put links like in the chat or in comments.
No, in chat I don't think it's possible.
Is it not?
Well, last month I did everything afterwards.
Yeah.
In the description box like a normal YouTube video.
And sadly, putting links in comments means that you usually go straight to the spam and somebody has to fish you out again.
Yeah.
So it might just be easier if you guys have Twitter to use the hashtag there. So, and now for where we read stories this month. I will let you mention what you read.
In March, I was on a reading slump, fairly bad one, as you might know. So I didn't read that much long, normal books or indeed short fiction, but I still read a few. It was mainly Clark's World March issue 114, Uncanny issue 9, which is March and April. Some Lightspeed short stories and a few Apex, and then a few odd Tor.com novellas as well.
Mm-hmm. And I read pretty much the same, though I read a whole bunch of Lightspeed and a couple of, one and a half Apex mags that I haven't gotten through issue 80 yet. And Asimov's, because I have a subscription to that now, and some random stuff from Strange Horizons. So it was a pretty varied month for reading short fiction.
Yep.
And I read a lot. I'm not going to read that much in April. I might be headed towards burnout if I keep doing that. So
yeah, I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah, I kind of made up for you. Like, you didn't read that much. I just read all the things.
Yeah, basically. But as long as one of us reads something to talk about, we'll do okay.
Yeah. As long as you have enough favorites to talk about at the end of the month, then you're good.
Oh, before we go into the short story, do you want to talk about Asimov briefly? Or are you going to do that in the next month? I mean,
Yeah, I might wait until I've read the April issue, because Asimov's is one of those, like one of the really older magazines, and they don't provide their stories for free online. They have like excerpts for some of them, but if you really want to read them, you have to pay for a subscription. So I don't really have the history with them to talk about them yet. But the March issue, I don't have any favorites from it, but it was pretty interesting. The longer novelettes were pretty good in that one.
Anyway, we should actually probably get around to talking about a short story then.
Yes. Which one of us should start?
Well, no, you can go first this time, and I'll go first next month.
Okay. Probably one of my absolute favorites from this month, if I had to like pick one, I'm going to go out of order, actually. The Dark Age by Jason Gurley. I'm trying to think of where I've heard of Gurley's name before. I think he wrote a novel called Eleanor that he self-published. I think he self-publishes a lot of work. And I should have been prepared emotionally for this story, because I heard that his novel was just absolutely gut-wrenching, like a really upsetting, sad story or something. And The Dark Age made me cry. I was really crying by the end of it. I might have been in a really melancholy mood, I don't know, but it was originally self-published in 2014, and it was reprinted in Lightspeed in January. And it's a science fiction tale about a man who can't be there to see his infant daughter grow up because he is on a space mission. He's about to go into like deep, cold sleep for over 100 years. And he made this commitment to the space mission, I think before he got married, and he never expected to have a child. And I think it's really about regret. I don't know. An intense personal sacrifice for a mission or a project. And this really, really made me cry. which is interesting. There are not a lot of male authors writing male characters that have really gotten under my skin like that. So it was really well written. I'm not even a parent, and I think that if I had kids, if I was like watching my children grow up and got to see them as children and everything and all of their firsts, and then thought about how that would be taken away from me, it would have been even worse. This might totally obliterate you emotionally if you're a parent.
Yeah. I actually read this, by the way, as well.
You did?
A few days ago.
What did you think of it?
I thought it's brilliant. The emotion that the guy goes through, you know, knowing that he's going into this sort of deep sleep, cold sleep, whatever, sort of stasis for 100 plus years, and he's gonna miss his child that's grown up, almost certainly miss their entire life. You know, his own daughter will be dead before he's awake again.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, and that's just like, that's not right. Obviously, because, you know, nobody wants to outlive your children.
Mm-hmm. It makes you ask the question of if it was so hard, if it was so hard for him, why did he go ahead with the mission? Like, he regretted it from the minute his child was born. So, you know, what is the dedication and the commitment that he had to keep him to doing that? I don't know if I'd be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, the motivation for them, of course, is presumably, obviously, you know, same as that story. You know, they go through ridiculous amounts of training and practice and stuff, and it's his life's ambition. So, and then just as he's accepted, then he has a baby. So he's like, you know, what did he do?
Yeah, you mentioned like all the training and, you know, probably a huge financial investment in him to get to that point to go on a space mission. So you reach that point of no return. So if you apply this to like your daily life, like if Gurley says he wrote the story because he had a period in his life when he was like working so much that he thought he was missing his child's life as they were growing up. You know, in real life, you might have an opportunity to step back and make adjustments, but then there are these high stakes things like this character goes through where you just, even if he wanted to, he might not have been able to get out of that.
Yeah, he was, you know, he mentally prepared himself, presumably, since he was in his teen years for, I don't know, presumably, you know, these stuff tend to go out like what, when the 30s means, like, you know, he prepared himself half his life to go into space and do this big thing, and it's been a big sacrifice, sort of a large portion of his life, and knowing his own family, and then he has a baby, and he's like, you know, that's the only thing he didn't plan for.
No matter how much you prepare, you will always not be prepared enough for how it really is.
Yeah.
So I think that this is, I mean, it's a science fiction story. I like to point out too that even if you took away the science fiction aspects, it still really works. I think that the emotion behind it is so realistic. You will always get it. And it's interesting that there really isn't much explained about the space mission. You don't really know where they're going. You don't really know why, but it still works so well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So any more thoughts on that one?
No, you know, both liked it. I mean, obviously, I read it because of you. You rated it highly, and then I rated it highly as well.
I'm definitely going to be going out and finding more of Gurley's works. I was just really impressed at how great of a writer he was. And if this is like what his self-published work is like, I have to go and pay for some of his stuff on Amazon.
Yeah, because it had impact. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, you want to go?
Yeah, right. Hang on, let me just. The first one, actually, it's pretty much the first thing I've read in a month. I'll start with that. Is 7 Cups of Coffee by A.C. Boys, which is in Clarksworld issue 114, which is March. This, I liked it, and I liked it because of has a concept. Basically, it's a woman who it's split into 7 scenes, and each scene, unsurprisingly, is revolved around her sitting there with a cup of coffee in her hand, and she's sort of mulling over and speaking sort of like a journal about what she's done and what she wants to do, and it has time travel in it, and she wants to fix certain mistakes she's made in her past, but she's also making more by trying to fix them. And I mean, I love anything to do with time travel, frankly, because I sort of have a love-hate relationship with anything to do with time travel, because I like the idea of it in some ways, but then it annoys the hell out of me because it just, the practical side of it and the whole sort of paradox thing, I just love that, anything to do with time travel, frankly. And this I thought was particularly interesting because it's like she's made a mistake, an old one, to do with somebody getting hurt, and she's trying to undo it or repair it or do something, and it's all about her regret. And if you could repair your mistakes, could you repair them properly? And frankly, should you? Because mistakes make you what you are, or do they? And it's sort of questioning, sort of what makes you you. And I just thought it was an interesting one, which and I know you had interesting thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read this one. I don't remember all the particulars of it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as you did. This is one that I listened to in the audio, the podcast version of Clark's World, and I don't know, it might be Kate Baker's narration. Whenever I listen to her do stories, they tend to be more melancholy and slow to me, and I didn't like it as much. Though I do enjoy, like you said, the trying to fix things, and it just gets really muddled about where you are in the timeline and whether if you do anything, if it's going to fix it or just make it worse. But I think I kind of balked the most at the introduction of the love aspect, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah.
It was interesting enough anyway with the regrets and what the main character was being asked to do, that I don't. The further complication of the romantic aspect, just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because of your because you listened to the audio, actually I did this morning as well. I prefer the written. I prefer reading it and listening to it in this particular case, but I still thought it was interesting though, in format.
I could go off on a long thing about how I think listening to the audio version of stories can totally change how you think about them versus reading them in print. It's my ongoing problem with Clark's World right now, is whether to listen or to read them.
Yes, I mean, I've never been much of a audiobook person, really. I mean, I did when I was in my early teens, and then that was kind of it. And then I've barely ever listened to audiobooks since, of any kind. Yeah. So, because obviously now you can get, obviously, Clark's World, stuff online now. So I might get into it a bit more now.
I think the audio versions that magazines do can be really interesting if they have like further commentary, or if they do the interviews like live with the authors. I like that. And this is going off on a tangent, but sometimes the poetry makes way more sense. Like Uncanny has poetry, and they do some of that in their podcast, and it's so much more beautiful to me when somebody speaks it. But I'm way getting off the point now. I'm sorry.
And I mean, because on that off point, the poetry in Uncanny, well, poetry never works for me really. I didn't quite get it. I read it and it's like, and wow. So I'm always looking for more. I don't know. I'm probably just reading it wrong, frankly.
I am probably too, and that's why I think when you hear it narrated by somebody who knows how poetry works, the way that
Yeah.
it's spoken is not necessarily the same way that it's written down or it's formatted, and it just, I'm one of those people, like, if it's the end of the line, I think it's the end of the sentence, and that's not
Yeah.
true in poetry.
Yeah. You know, one line at a time. That's it.
Uh-huh.
That's acceptable. So, you know, that's going off on a more heavier tangent.
Okay. So next story.
Would be, you know, yeah.
Okay. Speaking of poetry, and I'm gonna use that as a segue. Amal El-Mohtar is a person whose poetry is, I think, appeared in Uncanny and some other places, and I've actually enjoyed some of it. And one of my favorite stories this month was by her. It is Madeline. This is from 2015. It's from Lightspeed's June 2015 issue, and it's been nominated for a Nebula Award. So that's cool. That's how I found out about it. This one is about, of course, the main character, Madeline. Her mother has passed away after a battle with Alzheimer's, and Madeline was her caretaker for many years. And after her mother's death, she takes part in like a clinical drug trial, and she begins to experience these like hallucinatory flashbacks to her life, of her memories. And it's very disruptive to her life. She's in therapy talking about it, and then she starts seeing a girl in her memories, and she's asking, is this girl real? Because Madeline knows she's never seen her or met her. There's no reason why she should be seeing this woman in her own memories. So is she going crazy? Is this grief or the drug, what the drug did to her? And she starts to talk to this girl in her memories. I just say it like that. It sounds really crazy, like a really weird premise.
Yeah.
But it was really beautifully written, and it was handled well. The flashbacks into Madeline's memory were really well done, and that slow unveiling of what's really going on. This is another one that has has elements of love and romance in it, and it worked better for me rather than the AC Wise story. You could also say that there are parallels, not exactly of time travel, but of time being bent a little bit, or
Yeah.
maybe you could interpret
Yeah.
it kind of like that's kind of the same impression, the paradox, I guess, of memories. But mostly, I think I really like this because it tackles questions of grief and what mourning is like for a person. Because Madeline's life is kind of been destroyed. She took over being a caretaker for her mother, and then without her mother there anymore, I think she's kind of adrift. She's seeking solace in these memories. They are so vivid. They remind her so much of her mother, and she's almost like seeking out these flashbacks as comfort, to a better time, a more interesting time than her current life. And is there like a danger there of going too far into your memories and not living your life now, and will she ever have a future?
Yeah. Living your life in your memories, in your mind, and not actually in the real world.
Yeah.
You know?
Are you living in the past or in the present? And
Yeah. Exactly.
but I don't know. This is another one that it did emotion very well. The very interesting and realistic problem of caring for a parent who has medical problems, who has Alzheimer's, which is all about like loss of memory. So a lot to dig into with this one.
Yeah, and there's something that I was still not 100% sure about at the end, which I'm wary about talking about because it could give away something to do with the plot. But the other person who she remembers, who thinks she's memory,
Mm-hmm.
well, but that's raising an odd question because who's the memory and who's the real person. Is she in some sort of altered
Can
state?
we just like totally get spoilery here for a minute? Because I really want to talk about a theory for how this all works.
Yeah, so for anybody watching, sort of,
yeah, massive
who
warning
wants to
if
read
we're
it, just
live people and if people watching the recording of this later, we're going to talk about the spoilery ending to this story, Madeline. So
yeah,
put us on mute if you need to.
for like a minute or two. Well, we'll wave or something when we finish.
yeah, we'll wave. Okay, you want to know what I think? Okay. The way I interpreted the ending is that these women were both in the same drug trial and they have been inserted into each other's brains. I don't think they're actually in each other's memories. I think they're just sort of in each other's brains and it's getting overwritten on their memories. Like they are inside of each other's heads. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, they've seen each other in passing in the same building, this drug trial building, and they've made some sort of impact on each other for whatever reason without realising it. And then in their subconscious and this hallucinogenic world that they're in their own mind, they're now inserting each other as an actual person.
Okay. I mean, you can just feel that they have like a telepathic link with each other or something now. They have a mental link. And it's not just them. I think, isn't it implied that other people in the drug trial also kind of get paired up like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a strong possibility. I mean, you're never told, you sort of like hinted at, which I thought was really quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
But, you know,
but
what do you think sort of thing? That's what.
Yeah, I think that the reason this works for me, like the romantic relationship, I tend to be really picky about romance and stuff. And I think it's that they get to know each other inside of their heads. And then when they meet in the real world, they're friends and lovers already, I guess. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was just, but I came across that bit, they made me puzzled for a minute. I thought, well, until I thought a bit, for a bit more, because I thought, well, hang on, who's real, who's not real, and or with anybody really, is it sort of, are they both sort of like constructs of somebody else there, like a third person who's imagining them? I mean, it could be.
It could be all of the above.
Frankly, yeah.
So, okay, we're done with the spoilery bit. Yep. So, okay. Good story, good discussion.
Yeah. Again, another one that's got emotional and really interesting ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Back to you.
Go. Yep. Next one would be The Waiting Star by I'm gonna have to pronounce this. Aliette de Bodard. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely sure. This is in the March issue of Lightspeed, issue 70, and I really like this one. In some ways, because you've got insider and outsider space, and you've got a female captain of this spaceship, and her job is at this moment to investigate this derelict ship, because it might be part of the outsider space, who's got these weird ships and these weird sort of, I don't know, aliens or others anyway in them, and they're not obviously very, very different from humans. And the plot on the chapters alternate between the present and the past for background, and I just thought it's really interesting because it explains the alien species to a degree, but not fully. These aliens, they use humans to create more of their own sort of alien minds, and some of them some of the humans that try to escape, and which is peculiar by itself. And then the way it ends, which I'm not going to talk about, but I thought was quite interesting because it's to do with sort of elevating your consciousness to a sort of a higher plane of existence almost. And what is consciousness and what is the human mind? Is it just what's in here? Is it something more?
Mm-hmm.
It sort of plays around with that, and I liked it for that reason. I thought it was quite interesting.
I'm not sure I have a lot of thoughts on that one. I originally read it when it first came out, I think a while ago. And isn't that part of a world that de Bodard writes other short stories in?
I'd have to investigate that. I wouldn't be surprised,
Okay.
but I mean, if obviously if it's ringing a bell with you, then it probably is.
Okay. I know I might be confusing with something else I've read in that world. Mostly what I remember about it is how consciousness is across long distances and people being taken away from their ships or something.
Yeah.
I was kind of meh on it when I read it for the first time, but I hadn't really read a lot of short science fiction at the time. So I think I should have reread it. I'm sorry.
I mean, I've always got a thing for anything to do with sort of different planes of consciousness and what makes up the human mind, sort of psychology stuff. I mean, that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the science fiction books I've got have very, very strong science fiction psychological elements in them.
Mm-hmm.
This was a interesting short story with interesting psychological elements in it, which is perfect for me.
I think in that world that de Bodard has, like there are like ship minds.
Yeah.
Like people can become part of like the ship mind, and they're kind of like related to their ships because if a person from your family becomes the ship, like it's your auntie now, and I like that idea. I've always been fascinated by the artificial intelligence mind, or how a person can become fused with a ship. So that's a cool thing.
Several books this made me think of actually. Unsurprisingly, the whole sort of ship mind. Obviously, one would be of course Unlucky and the Fiancé books, which although I've only read the first book, as you know, I'm not a fan. I'm one of the few that probably isn't.
It is similar to Anne Lecky's because they actually have like taking people's bodies and putting them as an AI. It's ancillaries, and then you have like the Culture series by Ian Banks, which is the ships are artificial intelligence. They were never human beings or whatever beforehand. So,
and it's also something that makes me think of Peter F. Hamilton as well. Actually, oddly enough, because there's a lot you won't see in Judas and Jane, but in the Void trilogy, that's got a lot more ideas than the Commonwealth, and that's all sorts of interesting ideas. Which for the record, I do actually think that I cannot think that Anne Leckie was partially inspired by Peter F. Hamilton's Void trilogy, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the whole ancillary thing, Peter F. Hamilton's already covered it quite heavily, actually.
Well, that's interesting.
It's a significant thing. The Void trilogy actually has got something to do with kind of ancillary type technology, really significantly, actually.
Well, if I can't make it through Judas Unchained, I'll still give Hamilton another shot with the Void series then.
Yeah. Begin off again.
The tangents are the best part.
Yeah. So, I think we've pretty much covered that, haven't we?
Yep.
I think so. Okay, so on to the next one.
This is, I think, for all of like the serious and depressing stories, you have to have one that's just wacky and funny. So my next favorite is Significant Figures by Rachael Acks. This is another slightly older one. It's from Strange Horizons in 2013. And I'm going to read you the first line to it because this, I knew it was going to be great after this. It begins, that morning, at great personal risk, Stephen's waffle iron attempted to tell him something. Any story that has aliens, waffle irons, and invasions, it's just got to be good.
Yeah.
So this one, the main character, Stephen, he is actually an alien. He's referred to as a combat mathematician, which that's a great thing. And his species is constantly involved in warfare. He describes them like as a species of jocks to the 100th degree. He's nothing like that. He wants to escape their warfare, so he kind of defects to Earth when he's on a solo mission. He disguises himself as a human, including adopting a human family, convincing them that he is part of their family. And everything's going fine for him. He's living a quiet, ordinary life with his waffles until the aliens invade. And he's a real coward. I think he has this plan to escape Earth and get away from the battle zone. But even though his human mother tells him, "Don't be a hero, Stephen," he's kind of the hero of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm just cracking up trying to explain this.
Yeah, I don't forget the other hero, the waffle iron.
What?
Can't forget the hero, waffle iron.
Yeah.
Man, you know, the waffle iron's pretty much the hero as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if Rachael Acks was trying to actually mimic Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Douglas Adams style, but if she was, I think she did it pretty well. It just, the way that the story is written with like the sound effects, like guns that go or whatever, it was just great.
She must have been inspired by Hitchhikers, I would say. At least even if she weren't aware of it, you know, she must have been inspired, you know, from just obviously growing up and stuff.
Yeah. So Stephen doesn't take his towel with him. He does take his waffle iron, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention, I found this story because Jane from Yes Miss Jane tweeted it out, and I went down the rabbit hole of reading all of Rachael Acks' fiction online after that, and yeah, Significant Figures is awesome. It has a great sense of humor. And,
yeah. I mean, I just like the idea of a combat mathematician. It was like, okay, that's just weird.
You know, I think that's part of why it's so funny and why it felt so much like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because he does this crazy stuff with advanced mathematics. Like, that's how he does something with like the math of the universe to insert himself into his human family's life, like changing their memories. And I was like, how does that even work? That's not mathematical, but you just have to go with it.
Yeah, and it's got that Hitchhiker's, it's just madcap. You know, it's got everything. It links up really well, but when you're reading it, it doesn't seem to until you've read the next bit. It's like, you know, and then it starts all linking up, and then it becomes much better because it's just madness. Or something like
one random thing after another, and somehow you end up at the ending.
Yeah.
You know, I think I want to point out to you that one of the sweetest things about this story is Stephen's human family. The way that he describes his family, like the most ironic thing in the universe is that he attaches himself to a family that enjoys sports, and like they're a family of jocks, and he's trying to escape a species of jock. But they accept him anyway, and they think it's like the end of the world, but his mother is texting him like, "Be safe, I'm worried about you."
Yeah. Especially when his dad texts him as well, and it's even got like, you know, it's in text speak as well. It's slightly misdone, so he's like, you have to sort of like, I know, what's that? And then you have to almost fight for it.
Yep.
Which
So
struck a chord with me because I can never understand any kind of text speak myself. So whenever anybody does occasionally text me that, I'm like, what? I never know.
let me decipher your hieroglyphics because I can't. Why can't you just spell out the words?
Pretty much.
So, did you have any other thoughts on this one, or just?
No, I mean, just a brilliant science fiction sort of comedy with hitchhiker elements.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like the hitchhikers, you'll probably like this because it's almost certainly inspired by it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we're down to our last story because your last one is my last one.
Yeah. Well, there's I've got a Dolly to talk about.
Oh, right.
Simply.
Okay, do that. Sorry.
No, I almost forgot about it. Dolly by Elizabeth Bear, who's a fairly well-known science fiction author at this point. This was in Apex issue 82, which is March, and this is a sort of a murder mystery kind of, but with a Asimov, the robots universe overtone to it, which is obviously inspired by, and a wealthy industrialist or some sort of super rich guy is murdered, and his I don't know what it is. He's sort of robot, which is it's not an AI. I mean, it's not like a sentient AI. It's like semi one, and it was interesting because you got the main lead detective is this woman, and she's got a like a droid robot as well at home. Hers is obviously a more normal version because she's only a detective, not a ultra rich, industrialist guy. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't help thinking of Asimov when I was reading this because, I mean, actually, he actually mentions Asimov within it. In fact, he actually said, one of them says, can robots hurt humans? He said, well, the three laws, Asimov's laws are not effective or something. Sort of sarcastically sort of mentions about how useless some of Asimov's laws might be.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was nice. It's like it's a science fiction book set in a universe where Asimov himself still exists, and referencing him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't anything truly original because frankly, it did feel like a sort of a miniature version, an alternate version to iRobot. But I don't know, something about it just works, and it just questions what is human, what is a robot, and sort of an AI, and what is sort of sentient, life, and what is life in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I read this one last night and I really enjoyed it. I think it kind of encapsulates that classic story of when your creation might kind of come to life when things start getting very morally complex. Like you mentioned iRobot, like how the robots evolve and what they can and can't do in that. And it reminded me a lot actually of that TV series Humans.
Yeah.
Which is about a world where people have these robots. They get them as maids and as companions and as like assistants, and some of them are conscious sentient people. They have an awakening, and like the family that takes in one of them. So I saw some parallels there, because that's a TV show that also asked questions about could robots actually hurt people,
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I'm surprised that I didn't think of that show, The Humans, because I did watch it last year as well. So I'm just surprised I didn't think of it.
I think it's kind of funny that Bear like takes the entire idea almost of the first season of Humans and puts it in a short story, and it works.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to drag the story out. It brings up all the questions you want to bring up, and that kind of twist at the end. I don't know if it's a twist, but that final scene with Roz going home, and she has a robot there after everything that's just happened. That gave me a pause. Like, what is that statement right there?
Yeah, especially the dancing. That's what I'm going to say. And that was quite an interesting one. Yeah.
But I don't want to give too much away. But isn't it kind of like how it parallels how humans interact with each other? You know, you could meet a completely awful, murderous human in your life or something, or you suspect them of that. And then you go home to other people and you're like, other human beings are fine.
Pretty much.
Why wouldn't you think the same way about robots?
Yeah, you know, especially if you're around them a lot, you're going to, your mind will adapt to think of them in the very similar, if not the same way.
I can't remember. Is there any time in the story where somebody objects to the presence of robots in society? Or are they just accepting of the fact?
I'm not actually sure myself now.
Because that would be interesting. That's an element that you find in a lot of stories that have this plot line, basically. Is people, there's always somebody out there or a group that's saying, get rid of all the robots, let's go, destroy all the robots. And this story doesn't seem to really go there. It's like, once it's entered into society, there's no going back. Yeah. They're useful, they're helpful. People are not just going to ditch the robots once you've reached that technology. So are you going to waste your time complaining about it, or are you just going to accept it and move on and build a better future about it?
Yeah. I don't actually think it does question this, the society impact, actually, saying that.
I like that. I find that, what's the movie? AI? What's the one that has the little boy robot who's adopted by a family?
Yeah, that's how I
is that
don't
AI?
like that. Yeah, I don't like that film. I really don't like it.
I don't really like the film either that much, but the most horrible part in it is when the whole group of people who are trying to destroy all the robots, and they're like destroying them in fights in really horrible ways, and I'm just like, that's awful. Can we just get that?
And he says he's a little boy, and the little girl sees him, and they have to actually check him because of how human he actually is. He's human.
Yeah. Does it have to look like you before you won't hurt it? Yeah. Anyway.
So, okay, that's pretty much been covered then. So, on to, your last story, although we both read it. And
you want me to talk about Chimera?
Yeah, and then I'll add to it.
Okay. So the last story is the translated Chinese story from Clark's World's March issue. It's Chimera by Gu Shi. It's translated by S. Qiouyi Liu and Ken Liu. And I think this might be the longest one that we read because it's a novelette. It's quite long. And it's got two storylines that meet eventually. In the first storyline, a divorced couple have a son who is he's badly injured in an accident, and the father asks his ex-wife to generate new kidneys for their son inside of a pig, because she is a scientist who specializes in regenerative medicine, and she's had some success in the past with the chimera, the growing of one organism's organs inside of a completely different organism. And they do this thing. You can probably tell they do this thing. And in the second storyline is set in the future on a spaceship where all the people living on the spaceship get their organs replaced periodically. They grow new organs on the ship. And one of a whole series of organ orders seem to be canceled. There's a fault in the system, and an investigator on the ship is trying to discover what is going on with that. And slowly you get the gap of the years and the development between the storylines closed until you see how they connect.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this one. I have some thoughts on it, but I might let you go first.
Yeah, this is definitely the longest of any of the short stories that I've read this month, and it's definitely the most sort of science based as well. With the technology and sort of, the biological fusing that goes along with it, and I just like that that he asked his ex-wife and she doesn't want to, but she does do it. All these experiments to sort of grow organs for her son, and then he becomes a sort of a idol, that they sort of put up on a pedestal to sort of say that this technology works, and also the twists to do with the twists in the story, which I'm not going to obviously say, I thought were interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't expect them either.
There is a lot in here you could probably say about medical ethics, like scientific ethics, experiments on animals and on people. And it's interesting because it's from a very different cultural viewpoint from our own. Like, I think in Western society, we have our own thoughts about what is and is not acceptable in medicine and science, and especially when you are jumping the gun on developing something that's for humans, but you don't actually do any human trials. You just do it without permission, and that's tricky.
Yeah.
So just that was interesting to think about, but also just the ex-wife, the scientist in the story, and everything that she does. I don't know if this is another cultural divide type thing, but the way that she behaves in her personal life and in the scientific and in the medical communities is extremely far outside of what I would expect a real person to behave. Like, could they actually get away with that?
Yeah, makes you really question it.
Yeah, but I don't know. It makes me really wonder about how the Chinese view people and this type of field and everything, and what you can and can't do. So
Just a really interesting sort of ethics style. I mean, that's, to me, it's heavily about ethics. Well, that was one of the main points of it. Questioning what you can do and what you should do. And what are the differences between them.
That's a good question to ask, at the end of this story, to ask, should they have ever done any of this? It starts with the pig, the kidneys in a pig, and should any of this have been done once you know the end of the story?
Kind of unlike, that'd be really hard to. So they sort of both yes and no, especially when you know about the ship. Sort of, I'm not really sure if there is an answer, because if the reason is good but the method isn't, so well, at least it's not technically sort of moral or ethical anyway. So
because I mean the intention is good. The whole idea of saving people's lives because you can grow them new organs and stuff, that's an awesome idea, and we kind of want that. I can't help but think that if there had been less, I want to say there's like a lot of arrogance in the way that the science is handled. Like, I would expect that there would be more thought put into the ethics, but also the repercussions. What could possibly go wrong, and how would you handle that? Because I feel like that second storyline where they're on the spaceship, it's like it's just set up and it's working automatically. Like where's the oversight? Should you really have turned off oversight on that ship?
Yeah, it's just entirely automated.
Yeah. Would you want your healthcare automated to that extent? Because if something goes wrong,
yeah, I mean, it's like what I got put in my heart. You go in and just have, like a machine give you like a heart transplant with an artificial heart. Well, an artificial sort of that grown heart extension. It's like that's just weird. Thought, a machine's doing it, and there's no person there. At least overseeing it. It's almost entirely automated.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, but people can just be operated on, and theoretically they could even have, be weirdly changed without anybody actually ordering it to be done. It's just automatically doing all these things.
Yeah, and thinking harder about what you want inside your body. Like, if you're going to have this stuff put in you, don't you want to know where it's from and what went into it?
Yeah, if I'm gonna have a pig liver, then a pig grown liver, then I want to know that it's from a pig. I wouldn't want to just all be told, your liver's okay now. We've replaced it.
Yeah.
I'd want to know exactly how you've achieved it.
So I think this is one that the science and the issues in it are really interesting. And I would say I also think it was really well written, and the translation was very well done. I found it really easy to read. It's kind of like when I'm reading Chinese stories, some of them I really feel like the language, especially like Liu Cixin's work, like Three Body Problem, he has a very odd style to a Westerner. And so when you get a story like Chimera where the writing and the translation just seem to work so well, it's really great.
Yeah, I will read that at some point about Three Body Problem.
You haven't read that yet?
No.
No.
This is me, I often miss out on current stuff. But I will eventually.
Speaking of short fiction, Cixin had a translated story in Apex, maybe late in 2015. I think it wasn't translated by Ken Liu, but that was a really interesting one. And I found his style in that one to be less heavy than in Three Body Problem. But it was a really cool story.
Yep. I definitely be watching out for more by the author. At least it was definitely an interesting one.
Yep. So, is that everything we have to say about what we read?
Pretty much. I think that's all the stories.
Okay. Did we want to talk about Coyote invents the Land of the Dead? Differing opinions on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on this thing. This should be pretty. We're nearly an hour long, so we should be pretty.
Yeah.
I
will go quickly then on this one. I like this one. The style of it was the most difficult part. It is. It says right there in the title. It's kind of like a Native American type story where the coyote creates Land of the Dead, and it's a creation story for the underworld basically. And I really enjoyed it. I read this before I read Kai Johnson's collection that I really enjoyed, and I think she just does the style really well. She pulls it off. She goes just far enough and not too far. But you didn't like it.
Yeah, for the exact reason you just that you liked it, because I still have no idea what's going on in it. I'm still really puzzled by it, because it's like, well, it just still seems to it had an interesting style, but I don't actually know what it was trying to say or what the plot was. I don't know, I mean, it could have just been me, not, I don't know, just not used to anything like that though. I mean, to be honest, I don't think I've read many things in that kind of style before.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like,
I
yeah,
think of it
I just
as
didn't enjoy it.
a mythological tale. Like in Greco-Roman tradition, there are also stories about how the underworld was created or whatever. Persephone, the story of Persephone or whatever. And this is sort of like the Native American side of that. I don't really know what it means either or what the theme is. It's just that how if you had to invent a story of how the underworld was created, and if you didn't have an underworld, what happened to all the dead people? The imagery of all the shells whispering and everything, that was very interesting. It's also sad.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't actually get that reference. The problem is I didn't get most of the imagery that he created. Like the one about the shell whispering, so I didn't, you saying that, actually, that's the first time I realised it. So I missed a lot with this book, with this story. I really did. Most of it just went over my head.
Yeah,
And
I will say I had to really slow myself down while reading it and like read every word because it got confusing if you tried to go too quickly through it. So
yeah,
yeah.
I was confused. And I might try reading it again actually in the next week, and just now that I know I'm looking for, I might actually like it a bit more.
Okay.
Or at least understand it anyway.
And I think you have an essay that you wanted to talk about from Uncanny.
Oh yeah, it's just the Transmigration of George R. Martin by Javier Grillo. Marxo. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. This is from the
Javier Grillo-Marxuach. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry.
Well, and this I don't know. It's only a little short article referencing Philip K. Dick, as you know, he's one of my favourite authors, science fiction authors, and he's saying that talk about how Philip K. George R. R. Martin has become something far greater than what he is. I mean, he's an author, but he's become more because of obviously the TV series of Game of Thrones is now sort of everywhere. And I just thought it's a really interesting article, and obviously because of the 50k Dick references as well, and even the name, I thought the name was quite nice as well. The Transmigration of George R. Martin. There's a book called The Transmigration of Timothy Arch, which is a 50k Dick book, which I actually have back there. So, although it's unread yet, admittedly. And it's about him being more than merely a fantasy author is something greater, but what is he though? Just something interesting really, and it's nothing in depth.
Yeah. I'm not like a George R. R. Martin fan. I haven't read the books. I've only seen a couple of seasons of the TV show, but I thought that was a really interesting read because it talks about how a writer can kind of transcend just being a writer. He is so much more than that now.
Yeah.
And I know I followed some of people's complaints about like the weight in between books in the series and why is Martin working on all these other projects instead of writing books. And I think that this essay was a really good response to explain that he is more than just the author of the books. So.
And obviously using Philip K. Dick was an interesting one because of course Philip K. Dick he was an author who's, I mean, I'm sure I could be wrong, but I'm sure I heard once that he's the science fiction author who's had more of these stories, and short stories in particular, turned into film than any other author.
Really?
Science fiction, yeah. I mean, obviously Stephen King got more of these turned into film stuff than anybody else. I mean, Jesus, practically everything Stephen King writes, he is a movie or TV series, but Philly K. Dick's got tons of it as well. He's got about at least 11 that I can think of.
Wow, I mean, Blade Runner, right? And Scanner Darkly. Are those his?
Yeah, Blade Runner, Scanner Darkly, Minority Report. I can't think of any of the others actually. It's not, which is annoying. I do know pretty much all of them. Some of them that are based on really short, I mean, like tiny stories. Like, I mean, Minority Report. I've had that before Christmas. I'm going off on a tangent, but the short story of Minority Report, which isn't called Minority Report, at least not the original version anyway, it's like 17 pages long. That's it. And it's like they've made 2 films on it.
I assume the movie is really nothing like the short story then.
Oddly, I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, and also Total Recall as well. I mean, that's a really short story.
Mm-hmm.
And they made 2 films of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, that's going off on a tangent about Philly K. Dick.
I will say the nonfiction, the essays in Uncanny Magazine, which this one is one of those, is that they have been publishing a lot of really interesting commentary on current stuff. So
yeah, there's an article in February, which I cannot remember what it was about off the top of my head, but I know it was interesting. Just as interesting as this one was.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've gone over our hour, so we want to quickly talk about what we're going to read in April and then the next live show date.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay.
Well, you go first, as your list will be a bit longer.
Okay. I'll be trying to catch up on Apex 80 through 82. I have Asimov's, the most recent issue of Lightspeed. And there's not going to be an Uncanny because they had the March, April. So yeah. I'll probably go lighter on myself. I would really like to read more Tor stories in April because I missed out on a lot of them in March. So
yeah. I'll be pretty much saying Clark's World. Uncanny's done with until May. I'm reading a little bit of Lightspeed. What else is there?
I have been loving Lightspeed. Like, if we added that to our regular rotation, I would be happy about that.
Also, I was reading a few things off Strange Horizons as well, which I've been quite enjoying. So I will look into that a bit more. Probably read a little bit more for that.
Okay. Oh, and we have a planned buddy read in April of
yeah. I forgot
Her Smoke Rose Up Forever, which is this chunky story collection by James Tiptree Jr., aka Alice Sheldon. So if we like any of the stories in it, we might end up talking about them in the next live show. So these are classic sci-fi stories.
Yep. And I've got another idea that I'll talk about it with another time for another short story collection, which I own and I know that you're curious about.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that then.
We could do that for May or something.
Okay. So I think that is it for this live show. The next one where we talk about everything that we read in April will be
on May the 7th, which is Saturday at 7 o'clock my time, English time, and 1 p.m. your time.
On Central Time. And it'll be on your channel.
Yeah, and on my channel as well this time.
Yes. So.
And there's no daylight savings now, as far as I'm aware. So all daylight savings are changed, I think, now.
Yeah. I was so confused there for a couple of days about what time it actually was internationally.
Yeah. But it's all done now.
I don't. Oh, comments chat.
Ooh.
Sorry, I think I missed some people's comments earlier.
Yeah, I have. Well, I'm not sure. Does it update in like batches? I have a feeling it might update in like little bunches.
Oh.
Because I've been checking it every now and again, and nobody said anything other than the first few comments. So
Okay. I guess Liren, I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce your name. But if you have the book, awesome, read it, and we can discuss it in the next live show.
yep.
So I think that does it for us today. Thank you to everybody who watched this live and was talking in the chat. And remember, if you have any recommendations or anything you want to share links to, please use the SFFShorts hashtag on Twitter, and we'll be sure to check it out. And we will be
just say in a comment on this.
Yes, to comment on this, and we will continue using that to tell you what we're reading throughout the month. So,
Yep.
That is it for us.
That's it then.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.